I'm Claudia Mirza, investor and CEO of the Acorbi Group of Companies. Here today, I have Frank Gullo, Chief Technology Officer for Aileron SDI. Also, we have with us Robert Patterson, Director of Sales and Marketing for Progressive Computer, and Jesse Glassman, Director of Information Security at Acorbi. Today, we are going to be talking to our fellow IWEX sisters about the most important topic and perhaps relevant topic that we are dealing right now, which is cybersecurity. By 2025, it is estimated that cybercrime will cost businesses worldwide $10.5 trillion annually. With the global cost of cybercrime at $3 trillion in 2015, that is more than a threefold increase over a decade. This represents the greatest transfer of economic wealth in history, according to Cybersecurity Ventures. Cybersecurity has become another critical function in our businesses, such as accounting, operations, and sales. Our enforcement and laws, unfortunately, were created to prosecute bodies. With our digital economy, we must follow quiet and invisible enemies that, in many occasions, do not leave trace nor evidence. I am here to share with you one of the most difficult days for me in business, and it was the way that one of my linguists reported that one of the file folders was compromised. Even though we pride ourselves at Acorbi in our technology, the threat actors were able to get in one of the boxes. Fortunately, we had good backups. However, it did not end there. It had just begun. It was nerve-wracking to me as a business owner to know that we had to notify all the clients, contact the cybersecurity insurance, the authorities. All our clients stopped sending us work, and we took up to 2 months to convince them that most of our systems were clean. It was a nightmare. In the middle of the emergency, I had to remove team members from the company, and I had to take over, even though I didn't know much about this topic. The clients needed assurance, and they needed to see my face. I had to go and face the clients and tell them that I was here, that I was not going to pay for ransom, and that any money was going to be invested in cybersecurity. Since then, I think out of adversity, I believe that there is always an opportunity. And since then, we had gotten a cybersecurity experts and acquired a technology company that brought several cybersecurity professionals to our business. So I have learned my lesson, but I wanted to make sure that today we have the opportunity to share with you some of the most important topics with this amazing group of panelists. So today we are just going to begin with Jesse. So Jesse, I would love to know, how do the threat actors get in?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, we don't know the exact source. We know the box that it started on. We were able to trace it back to a single laptop. And from that laptop, they used what was called a pass the hash. So basically, they got a copy of the local administrator password, and they were able to jump from box to box to box using that password. Once they got in the data center, they continued to use that same attack to move across the data center until finally they found something that they thought was worth encrypting. At that point, the ransomware took over, did what it normally does, and the reaction began from there.
One of the best things that had happened out of this experience is to be able to get a business network that could recommend Jesse and be able to get Jesse to our company. So thank you, Jesse. I cannot tell you how grateful I am. Jesse, why don't you give us a short tour through the dark web and how the information is there for sale?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually bring images. I thought we were just talking about it. So let me just explain how the dark web works. It's basically a separate network. It's a hidden network. You have to have certain software in order to get into it. And it's not like the standard internet. You can just jump out there and go to Google and type in, I'm looking for credit card numbers, or I'm looking for, guns for sale. You actually have to know where you're going. There are some databases out there that kind of keep track of some of these sites, but even those are difficult to find if you don't know where to look. Once you're in the dark web, pretty much anything you want is for sale. Drugs, guns, money, organs, people. I mean, you name it, it's pretty much all out there. And one of the big hitters right now is people's data. So, I mean, in an attack like we had, or attack like hits pretty much anybody else, all this data is uploaded and it goes up there for sale to the highest bidder. So normally in a ransomware case like this, a lot of times they go out, gather a bunch of data, basically tell you, hey, if you don't pay for the data, somebody else will. So either pay the ransom or we sell it to someone else. So this is pretty much what we're facing in most ransomware cases these days.
I love it. Thank you. Rob, what are the issues that you have experienced recovering the backups? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a situation where we had we were part of that supply chain attack where some of the software we used to take care of our customers was compromised. So we had ransomware across a number of customers and endpoints. And the things that we ran into were some simple things, actually, that your IT professionals, I'm sure, have told you. This is to the general audience, and will continue to tell you. If you have, say, a server in place or wherever your main data is supposed to sit, I'm sure you've heard over the years, don't leave things on your desktop. Put them in the shared drives, put them in the network drives. Your data is supposed to go in, X, Y, and Z places. What we found as a big challenge is, although we had securely backed up all the servers, and let's say all the cloud infrastructure, people still had put things on their desktops and laptops outside of that system. And quite frankly, most of our customers don't want to pay for desktop backup. They'll pay to back up their servers, but they don't want to pay to back up each individual machine. And so we were able to bring, almost all of the data back on the servers because, they had been convinced over time that that was a good move. But people lost data on their desktops that they kept. So that's certainly one challenge that you have to make sure, as obvious as this sounds, that you're backing up your data where it actually is living. The other challenge is to make sure whatever backup system you have in place, somebody's actually monitoring that, and it's working and it's backing up what you think it's backing up. Because we'll go into networks all the time where we look at, we talk to people and we say, do you have a backup? Yeah, our IT people are taking care of that. And then you look and maybe the backup isn't capturing everything, or it didn't run properly, or nobody's verifying that it actually, works. So, but those are a couple of the challenges around that.
Yes, and I think, Jesse, the fact that we had our files in the cloud didn't mean that they could not get encrypted. Is that correct?
No, that is correct, yes. Yeah, and something else to note on the backup side. So if you're doing your backups local, I've actually run into this with other companies. You need to make sure that the accounts you use to do your backups are not the same accounts you use for your production. Because if your production accounts get compromised by ransomware, then it can move into your backups and back those up. I mean, I worked with a company before where it didn't actually ransomware their backups, it ransomware their catalogs. And anybody in IT who knows how long it takes to recatalog backups, it was almost faster just to pay the ransomware and go on. We didn't, but it took a long time to recover from that. So, make sure those accounts are separate, because if one gets compromised, you don't want that moving over.
So, Frank, what are some of the things that you would suggest doing to help prevent ransomware and other attacks?
Well, thank you. I think the good news is there is a lot of information out there and a lot of people who specialize. So, even if you're running a business and you don't work in IT or have no experience in cybersecurity, there's a lot of information you can tap into, including the panel here. So generally, I like to think of it, if you think of your house, you will have carbon monoxide fire detectors. And the reason is you're hoping, of course, that you don't have a fire or situation, but you're trying to prevent it. So I think thinking of your overall information security is like that. There's a lot you can do starting today. So some examples that I'll list, and we can certainly give you more information, is you're going to want a degree of technology protection. So this will include things like malware, vulnerability management, antivirus, a firewall. So you want to have the standard, best possible information security for your business that you can. But a lot of it is really not technology. And a lot of you are business professionals, so you have experience here. So that's making sure you have processes that are really set out to protect you. You're using and drawing from security standards. So for example, NIST, NIST is one, CIS controls, CIS controls is another. You can go look up these information for more information. But you also want to put together, if there is an attack, what is your plan? And usually this is called incident risk management. So you want to really write this out, almost like your business's plan. If something happens, here's what we do. And that can be as simple as a one-page document. Who do I call? Who are the key contacts? You want to prepare that. I would also strongly recommend you do something annually around third-party auditing or testing. And in the business, this sometimes is called penetration testing, vulnerability testing, but you'd hire a firm to really do this objectively, essentially to try to find flaws in your system, and then you could remediate that. And then finally, I would suggest training for all your employees. There are firms you can partner with who will do it. These are usually lower cost, but every year having people do some phishing training, and if they fail it, well then talk to them. So those are just some of the things. Thank you.
I agree with you. One of the things that we have been doing in our company is sending a good phishing attempts to our team members, and in fact, the number of people that click on them is quite significant for you to be able to see in a safe environment the things that people will do to get access to their network. So this is part also about training and training the team members. So now, actually, with trained employees, it's actually remarkable to be able to hear how they report issues that are extremely important for our company and for us to really start addressing those. And in fact, the threat actors are becoming smarter and smarter. So I think the training and all the team members staying vigilant is extremely important to save our company. But again, it took a significant amount of training and also be able to collect enough data about all the links that they are clicking and see how we can start decreasing. The fact is, we are gonna get hit. And how do we get hit? Like a rodeo, when somebody is riding a rodeo, in the rodeo, is riding a horse, they know that they are gonna fall. But how do you fall? You need to fall graciously. The same thing with cybersecurity. We will get hit, but how do we prevent or how do we fall graciously? So that's some of the things that we need to learn as business owners here. I really love this question. This is my favorite one because this was very, very scary. So Frank, whenever those threat actors are giving you all this drama and they say, you need to pay, otherwise we are gonna release all this information. So do you pay for the ransom or not? And also tell us a little bit where that money ends up if you pay the ransom.
Sure. So again, this is hard to answer as an absolute yes or no, because I think, there always are situations that vary. I would say generally no. And here's some of my reasons. I think, first of all, you'll want to make sure you check with your legal. There may be laws in your country or state or territory that may have punitive measures if you were to pay. Because some of the entities are criminal enterprises. Also, you want to check with any cyber insurance if there are any clauses around what are the legalities of when that's paid out? I think the other thing to note is, in our experience, when you do pay, or those who have paid, remember, victories are celebrated on the dark web. So you're in some ways opening up your firm for more attacks. So we've certainly seen that. I think also, just in my experience, knowing a firm that has paid once, so remember who you're dealing with. These are often criminals. So it's not like a turnkey. So if you do pay, remember, you'll often have to set up and register on Bitcoin. You'll pay through some cryptocurrency. You may not be set up to do that. That may take time. And it's also not necessarily an automatically immediate decryption. So you may have to wait for a program that may take days. Again, so these are all run into my reasons, and I think others on the panel, like Jesse, would be able to elaborate more. So I would say no. The first thing you should do, instead of worrying about that, is make sure you have your backups, make sure they're separate, make sure they're not the same as your production systems, and that should be your strategy instead of paying.
Yeah, and on that point, the problem becomes if you don't pay. With us particular, under our attack, we were threatened with a denial of service attack. So basically the threat actor said, hey, if you don't pay me, when the clock runs out, I'm going to take this botnet and use everybody on my botnet to take down your network. This is a very common threat amongst them. Also the threat of, hey, we're going to expose your data. We're going to sell your data. That's a very common threat. So, I mean, you got to be prepared for the fallout if you say no, even if you do have your backups in place, because that may not be the end of it. But I mean, yeah, if you've got good backups in place, if you choose to pay it, yeah, I'm with Frank. You're just making yourself a bigger target. So I'm never in favor of paying ransom unless you just have no other options.
And again, you are dealing with in many occasions with criminals. If they are coming into your network quietly and stealing your data, well, you decide what kind of people are these. But the other thing is, as you mentioned, we also have trade agreements. And we are also bound here in the United States with major and important laws. So where are we going to be if we pay? Are we going to send money? Is this money going to be sponsoring terror? And is that money going to be traced? And therefore, are we sending money to countries that we should not be sending money to? So there are embargoes, there are enemies of our countries, and it's very important for us to really know that we are dealing with criminals. The other thing is you send the money, but they are never going to sign a promissory note or a contract that they are not going to release your data. So if they already stole from you, what are the chances that they are going to really keep that data safe? So I decided I had to tell all the clients, we are not going to pay for this. And it was a serious act of courage. And going back to rodeo, you know that the horse is going to back. You know that the bull is going to throw you. But you need to be sitting properly. Whenever you are really taking that posture that I am not going to pay you, you have to really take an offensive position or really get prepared to be hit. Luckily, and I think it's just because I have done good things in life, the threat actors in the middle of the negotiation were dismantled. So Guys, I really don't think that everyone can tell this story. They were dismantled. They were really intercepted by the FBI, and this was a real big network. So let's continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, this was kind of during the time of the pipeline hack, the ransomware on that. So we feel like they probably just got too much heat. And literally one morning they woke up, the website was gone. They released the keys out to like CNET and said, decrypt your stuff and we're gone. And that was the end of them. So we definitely lucked out on that part. And that's why we never saw the denial of service attack, because they disappeared.
But, I think we were lucky, but it was very, very scary. And also it gave us some time for us to really prepare and invest all this money in our network. And again, as I mentioned earlier, We purchased a technology company that brought a significant amount of technology experts in cybersecurity as well. Rob, so I have a question for you. So is there any silver bullet for protecting yourself in cyber attacks?
No, there's not a silver bullet. I think if you listen to everything everybody said, especially like some of the things Frank highlighted, I mean, he just hit on a handful of, not a pun intended here at all, but a handful of bullets in his list that were just even some of the items. But I think that you have to assume that you're going to take some layered approach. It's not one thing you're going to do. I just reflecting, listening to everyone here, there probably are different size companies that we're talking to right now, the audience here. So maybe some of this may sound kind of intimidating, get this framework in place and do this and, have these standards. And I think that the main thing is you need to take action. I think you need to create some kind of culture of security awareness at your company. The idea that, oh, well, my IT department handles that, or my IT company, that's really not the game. I don't think we could go into statistics on this, but a lot of the things that happen actually are initiated by end user activity within your company, not maliciously necessarily, just because they don't have the training. But I really just can't stress more that this isn't a topic that you have to have a certain market cap or you have to generate certain revenue to be a target. Everybody's a target for sure. And if you think about things like, well, who's going to want, my little QuickBooks account or something like that? It's like, even in that scenario, if they get you, they get all your customers. Like it's on and on. These are professionals. These aren't just people in hoodies sitting in a basement like you see in the picture. This is the face of organized crime now. Like this is big deal. This is big business, and they have the advantage of not having to follow any of the rules that you have to follow. So I think you really need to take it seriously. You need to get some help. I would say whoever you can turn to in this, don't just try to Google stuff and do it yourself, and put some budget to it. Because if this happens to you, or when this happens to you, all you're going to wish is that you had done something more to protect yourself, because you're going to be in this terrible position that's just either embarrassing from reputation or could put you out of business. So I kind of went long on that, but no silver bullet, but lots of good prudent steps you can take to help put layers in the way to make things more difficult for the attackers.
I agree with you. In our case, we had around 2 months of loss of business. It's also, whenever we experience these type of things, it's not really that we were not able to be back. We were able to be back, but the clients really took a long time to be able to do all the respective analysis and cybersecurity analysis and penetration to be able to say that you guys are good to go. Also, you lose information or intellectual property. You are losing your client list. It's also going to affect your reputation. So it is. This is a serious matter, guys. And also, you said something, Rob, that is extremely important. We need to set up budgets for this. Just because we don't see it, it does not mean that it's not happening. And also, I noticed that whenever we started looking at the dark web, the amount of small businesses that are attacked, they know that they can get more success attacking small or medium-sized businesses than large businesses, because large businesses already have strong IT departments and are used to this. However, smaller organizations or medium-sized business, that we are vulnerable. So Frank, besides ransomware, what are the other types of risks that you are seeing out there?
Sure. So great question. I think a lot of our focus has been on ransomware today, but there are other risks, and I want to just highlight some. And I think these are important because as business owners, you could immediately take some steps. So a lot of threats and account compromise come from insider threats. And these could be either malicious people, maybe a disgruntled employee, or even non-intentional. And some examples, so think about your workforces. How many people work from home? Are you having them use company sanctioned software? Are they using their own software? Are you sure those machines are safe? Within your network, are you letting people share files, open social media? Can they share things on common file services like Apple, Google Drive, OneDrive? These are some of the common methods of data exfiltration where it leaves the business. And also just thinking of your processes. How much do you share personal information? Are socials ever shared or equivalent identifiers from other countries? Are you aware of all the data that may be leaving and how it may be leaving? And that typically is referred to as data loss prevention. There are a number of tools. So it also shows that security is very close to privacy. They're separate, but they really relate to one another. Because you may have somebody who just accidentally emails out a file with thousands of social security numbers. So no bad actor, but the data is still lost and out there. So just some of the things to consider, along with everything Rob laid out. Thanks.
I agree. And the other thing, another attack that I have seen is how they go and change the bank account and they go and impersonate one of your team members. And I have seen business owners sending $400,000. A long time ago, one of my accountants sent $43,000. We sent $43,000 in cash. $43,000 for a business that makes 500,000 is 10% of the revenue.
Right. And one of the misconceptions that email is a safe, method of communication, and it can be under certain circumstances. But generally, if you're using just email to approve payment, that can be a red flag. So one of the things we say here is pick up the phone, right? Using some other means of validation or some other third-party payment validator services.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen, at least me in my lifetime, a lot of attacks where it's kind of like a supply chain hack. It's literally like just they've compromised somebody. They go through their email and see, oh, they work with these people. Send an email and say, hey, just to let you know, my bank account information's changed. Instead of sending it here, I need you to send it here. It all looks legit. It all comes from the right email address because they've been compromised. On our end, it looks like someone we normally do business with. Something gets changed and the money goes somewhere else, and there's no way to get it back. So that's actually a very common attack these days.
So I have a lot of names online. I have a lot of Claudia Mirzas. So luckily my team members already know that I never ask for money unless we have other methods of communication. Rob, were you saying something?
Oh yeah, well, a couple things. Even to your point right there, that's the kind of simple thing you can do though. Like if you haven't even had that kind of conversation with your team, it's a simple one, right? I'm never going to request money through email. Okay, you just basically cut down this whole attack vector just by some company policy or a board meeting or something, or just a staff meeting. But the other thing we just sort of talked a little about, but we didn't go in any depth, is there's this whole social engineering aspect of what happens now where it seems, and I mean, I'm not as much of the security expert as these guys on the call here, so maybe you want to weigh in too, but it seems that the idea of trying to bash into your network and grab a credit card is kind of old school in terms of what people are trying to do. It seems more like they want to get in there, kind of lay in wait, understand how you operate for some of these bigger, crimes they can commit, so that when they're sending that email asking for the money, it's not only that they're just sending it to your contacts or sending it from you, they're using the language that you would use or the way you might talk or maybe the nickname you have for that person, because they've been watching. So if you have the right systems or software, there's some stuff called managed detection and response. There's a different layers that you can put in there to try to even identify that those people are in your network before they even take the action. But it's pretty deep. But that whole idea to
add to that. So remember, you don't even have to be compromised. So Claudia, I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, and you have a lot of the people on this call are on LinkedIn. So you can do some research and I can, find out just from some cursory look, like who are you connected with, and then I can impersonate some of those connectors. So remember, the attacks can come from what is available to your public information as well. Are you using social? And you'd mentioned how your name is pretty common, so that also can help confuse it because that's such a common name.
Well, it's not common. My name is not common. Just the threat actors have made it quite popular. Well, the other thing is an important advice. Different banks have different cybersecurity measures, and there are banks that are different from the others when it comes to cybersecurity. I would say that it's very important for you to take a look at your bank's technology infrastructure. I have noticed that my bank in a specific has caught major attempts, such as falsification of checks and a lot of things. However, the previous bank that I had, they really made a lot of mistakes, such as whenever the $43,000 were stolen, they contacted me 10 days later asking me, Claudia, did you ever send this money? I said, no, I did not. Versus my bank today, they are contacting me immediately to see, and they are holding all the funds. They are not releasing them. So I think it's very important also for you to partner with companies and providers that are really technology aware. Okay, well, with this, we pretty much have concluded the set of questions, and there are some important conclusion topics that we would like to pretty much summarize here. So for all of you ladies, cybersecurity is everyone's job. Again, if you notice, we are talking about providers, employees, clients, and everyone around you is involved in the cybersecurity. Also, remember that technology is only part of the solution. Threats are constantly evolving, so there is no end to security awareness and prevention. Though closely related, security and privacy are different, and it is important for you to understand both. Any other final comments that would you like to provide before we conclude?
Sure, I'll jump in there. When this attack happens, when you suffer ransomware, your first reaction is going to be to panic, right? And it's important to react, but it's more important to not overreact, right? You have to understand that when you overreact, you may be tearing up evidence, you may be tearing up data, you may be getting rid of things that you're going to need to understand what happened, okay? So number one, relax, it's gonna be okay. And the key thing is to find patient zero, where that initial infection took place, okay? You've got an infected server, it's already infected, stop worrying about it, disconnect it from the network, don't shut it down, and then start using that trail to go back and find it. And again, like we were saying earlier, there's plenty of people out there to help you with it. The best thing you can do is have a plan in place. Know who to contact, know who you can call, know who you have to call, so that when this happens, you don't panic and run around going, I don't know what to do, I don't know who to call, I don't know who to contact. Have your plan in place, start building that today if you don't already have one.
Right. Now, just to add to that, so you've heard a lot of information. Some of it may be overwhelming. May not know where to start. So I would say, if nothing else, put a date in your calendar. I'd say December is a good time, end of year. If nothing else, put that in your calendar as a day to revisit and begin your security planning for 2022. You have Claudia, and she's able to provide additional resources as needed. So don't panic at the amount of information. I think, as Jesse said, first thing is a plan. So if nothing else, your first step can start right after this meeting with the calendar entry to revisit in December.
Yeah, I would add to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I'll say, and on the point, a good thing to do is what we call a tabletop. Throw everybody in a room and pretend like you had a ransomware attack. Let everybody do what they were going to do. Hope that's not what you're about to say and I cut you off.
No. That's what I was thinking is something we kind of floated through in here is the cyber insurance. This is an important thing to have set up. What made me think of it is where you said the plan. I know, step one in a plan, or like let's say step one of a non-technical part of the plan would be contact that provider, because if you have that cyber insurance in place, along with that, you may get like a team of lawyers, expert advice. They're even gonna say, hey, here's the data experts to send in to come start looking at the forensics of what's going on. If you don't have that on your side at all, it's going to be much more daunting to figure out who the first phone call is going to be as the business owner, or where you're going to get some of that help. So I definitely would recommend, and that cyber insurance, it's not incredibly expensive, let's say. I think, but what's going to come along with that, so and this is in terms of the preparation, is you're going to have to do some auditing of what safeguards you have in place. Just like if you're going to get car insurance, they're going to look and see if you had accidents, or health insurance or life insurance. You're going to have to submit to certain tests. But so that's another step you could probably take in the planning phase, is look at that insurance. That's going to come along with some list of questions that you can use to help evaluate where you are in this process of even beginning to be secure. I think.
Well, you mentioned, Rob, you mentioned a very good point, but you were finishing your thought, or should I continue? Well, we had a very strong cybersecurity policy, and the part about the cybersecurity is one of the questions, and I still don't have clear, or perhaps, whenever the cybersecurity deployed the team of experts, they are just trying to understand, really, they deployed lawyers, and also they deployed a forensics company to understand where the attack is coming. But one of the things that I learned is that they are really not going to fix your system. Once, basically, you have to have your team, your internal team, or you have to be prepared to be able to get your company and take all the measures to be able to fix it. So just because you have the cybersecurity company, it does not mean that all the things are going to be fixed for you. But one of the questions that I had for you guys is that whenever we are dealing with the lawyers, are the lawyers your best friends, or are they really representing the insurance company? How does it work?
Are they ever your best friend?
No, but I really don't know. It's like,
so I think that's a great question. I think in our case, we have actually a privacy security office. So for us, it's very much a partnership between IT and legal. So legal is very helpful. This is in-house on the privacy side. So they're in touch. Remember, and I assume a lot of the audience is international. So we do business in other countries, and different countries have different legislation. So obviously, I think this group is familiar with GDPR. So having that legal, thinking it not just around the cyber insurance, which is important, but also around all the gamut of privacy laws, and not only what is in place today, but what's coming. How do different countries, have different legislation and policies around it? So I think it's really important to have at least some level of a partnership with legal, whether it's in-house or a retainer firm.
Yeah, and something good to note. I mean, if you do have an internal legal team and you do suffer an incident, it's best to let them be the one to make the initial contact. So everything falls under attorney-client privilege and can't really be subpoenaed by anyone. And that way it just gives you a little more control. If you don't have internal legal, you could go get one, but I mean, it's best to have your legal counsel make that call.
And another thing, after the cybersecurity experts, I went and I hired an internal legal team that is actually helping us with all the different countries. And so we have hired an internal legal counsel to be able to help us. Never thought that I had to hire a lawyer in our company full-time. But it came to that point that we are reviewing contracts, we are dealing with other attorneys, again, for policies and procedures and how to deal with this type of communications is very important. That I agree with you, Frank. We partner and we have an internal.
And I would say also, in addition to legal, like if the company has a risk department, because a lot of the threats we've talked about, bad actors, employees, but vendors are a big part of the risk. So you can be doing everything right, but a vendor can be compromised. And if they have access to your system, they're in through a legitimate means. So I think that's the other, however vendors are managed in your company, whether it's procurement or some other department, that is another key piece to make sure you're in sync with.
That's true. Go ahead, Rob.
I just, I'm always, it seems my whole life is around this topic that I'm thinking about, like our customers are say 15 users to 150 users, but most of our customers are say 25 user companies. So this can get even more overwhelming of legal teams and all, which is all awesome advice for sure. But I'm just trying to think of, like, say, customers I know that have 15 employees. They're unlikely to bring a lawyer on staff, let's say. But I think that thinking through these steps, and I believe that Jesse made a great point too. When I was saying that the cyber insurance, this is sort of this part of the equation over here that maybe will get you some of that legal help, some forensics help. Also, in our case, they gave us language, don't say this, say that. It wasn't a breach, right? Because X, Y, and Z didn't happen. So if you don't have to say the word breach, you just have exposed yourself to less liability. Things like this, that, would you know this? I don't think you'd know. I mean, I don't think most people would know those nuance. But then on this whole other layer we've been talking about today of, let's even say that the incident response plan, this would be a thing where I might say, like early step 1, 2, or 3, call your insurance provider. But this whole other story is going to kick off in place from your technical side of locking down things and remediation. And to Claudia's point, the things that are going to stand your business back up again. So these things are all kind of working in conjunction. And the other point to what Frank was talking about with vendors, or these other angles also around the world of privacy, you should spend some time in this planning phase thinking about what are your agreements with your current customers, what language is in there, what liability or responsibilities are you accepting or not accepting in the initial term of what's going on. And that would be a great place to pay for some lawyers to review and help you write these agreements. I know with our customers, when we bring them on and they sign a managed service agreement for us to be their IT department, we're not just blanket accepting responsibility for everything, that's for sure. So we're even sort of mitigating some of the risk to our company right from the get-go by what's in those documents. So some other areas, but this all does kind of fit into a puzzle. You just gotta kind of attack the pieces that you can attack over time, and hurry up.
And you mentioned a very good point. There are two things that I would like to say about that. Whenever we had the incident, our clients were all citing, they are saying, you have in this contract, you have to provide response within this amount of hours or this amount of days, and you have this amount of time to be able to get back to us. We need for you to stay, and this is a whole different type of team that I have never seen, and they are used to doing and dealing with this type of emergencies. But the other thing I will say is that the part that is quite intriguing about this incident is that even though we use the technology, cybersecurity, forensics company, we were not able to show that there was actually a data transfer or loss of data. So even though we went through all this exercise, we were never able to verify or find traces that, in fact, there was a data transfer and there was data stolen. So this is all in the dark. And this is very important for us to really become aware how we can protect our businesses.
And to Claudia's point, it's really difficult to prove to your clients that something didn't happen, right? If data got stolen and we saw all this data exfiltrated, it's really easy to say, oh, this data was stolen and we saw it go out on this date and time. But to sit there and prove to your client that that actually didn't happen anywhere, I mean, that's like me telling you an animal exists and telling you to go find it. I mean, maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but I mean, you can't search the whole world looking for this thing. And that's what they expect from you, is some sort of proof saying this didn't happen. And it's almost impossible to prove it. You know, all we can say is lean back on our forensics teams to say we found nothing that supports it did happen, but I can't promise you it didn't.
Well, again, it's important for us to really make cybersecurity an important function in our companies. Make sure that we have budgets. This is a real issue. The loss of intellectual property, revenue, time, reputation, it is critical. It is time for us to be able to incorporate these best practices in our businesses and make sure that we know that we are going to get hit. How are we going to get hit? When are we going to get hit? It's a matter of time. So for that, we need to be prepared and really stay learning and getting more information about how we can secure our businesses. Well, thank you, all of you. It has been a pleasure sharing this forum with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Stay safe.